All right, good morning. This is Jay Trucker 717, and you are listening to Jay Trucker 717 broadcasting. Okay, what is going on this morning? All right, let me get a cup of coffee this morning. All righty. What is going on today? Protests heat up in Atlanta, interstate blocked. Okay. As protesters across the country were beginning to slow down, video of an officer shooting an African American man emerged, reigniting tensions. Oh my gosh. On Friday, June 12, 2020, an Atlanta police officer shot and killed Rayshard Brooks. 27-year-old Brooks had allegedly passed out at a Wendy's drive-thru. When police arrived, they suspected Brooks of driving under the influence. After police attempted to handcuff Brooks, he began resisting arrest. Video of the incidents that during the scuffle, Brooks took an officer's taser, then Brooks began to run away. Okay, we're going to show you a clip of the actual blocking of the freeway. Let's take a look at those clips.
And we want to head back there, just a stone's throw away from that area where the incident happened. We see protesters on the interstate blocking traffic, 14 lanes of traffic being blocked on the downtown connector at University Avenue. That's where we find our Doug Richards. And Doug, what's changed in the last few minutes? I know we saw the officers get off the MARTA bus. Go ahead.
Well, what we saw a few minutes ago was police officers in riot gear getting off of a MARTA bus and marching off to the south. They have since crossed over the median concrete barrier of the highway, and they have deployed themselves probably about 200 yards away from, as we swing to the left, where a second line of protesters has gathered across the highway. And so what you have here is you have a line of protesters here facing the riot-clad police officers to the south. But then on the other side of the protesters closest to us, you still have several hundred protesters who are blocking traffic. And they are over there chanting. And the folks over here are apparently going to meet the riot police if and when they decide to walk forward and try to do something about this. And it's unclear what exactly it is they plan to do because they're kind of approaching the blockade from the rear, rather so they can't push protesters back from their position, the protesters who are blocking the highway. Instead, if they're coming from our right, as they appear to be, they would have to pull them away somehow. And I don't know anything about police tactics, but it seems like the shields would be more effective pushing than pulling. So that's what's going on at this point. There's some chanting going on. It's a very spirited evening here, unless you are stuck in traffic on Interstate 75, 85. Right. As the highway is blocked by protesters.
Right, Doug. As we're watching the video and your photographer there pan across the interstate, we are seeing different groups of protesters. There seem to be some sort of cohesion among the protesters. Are they all there together? Or is there sort of any person in command that's telling them what to do? Or is everyone just doing whatever they feel like?
I would call it semi-cohesion. They all seem to share mostly the same purpose. There seems to be a number of different leaders or people who have asserted themselves as leaders or people who have come to be regarded as leaders. But to say that there is a formal structure in this protest, I think would probably be a vast overstatement given the chaotic nature of the protest that we saw much of the afternoon, where we saw protesters sort of lurching from one part of the neighborhood to another, to another, to another. Sometimes they would confront the police on the highway a little bit and then back off, and then about a half hour later they'd go up again and do it. And then, of course, this time when they did it, they did a flanking maneuver that U.S. Grant would have been proud of, where he where the protesters came around on University Avenue to the opposite side of the interstate highway and took the highway, as it were, from the opposite side. So,
all right, Doug. Thank you. We appreciate it.
There is an organizational quality to it, yes.
I will check in with you in a while.
So I was on my way home from 12 hours of protesting in Atlanta and ended up right back in another protest. This is the 7 lanes of traffic in Atlanta that were shut down by protesters from the Wendy's on University Avenue protest. It's freaking incredible.
All right. Again, we see a situation where the freeways are being blocked through protesters protesting the injustice of the killing of these black youth. Most people feel like it's unjustified. And no matter which way you feel, you know, I think people want justice and fairness in the police department. And if you're driving in that area as a truck driver, you need to be aware of your surroundings and be aware of what you're going to have to go through. So in Atlanta right now, there is protest, and you're going to see some freeways being blocked and major protests going in that area. So be very careful, be safe out there. You know, no matter which way you feel about the situation, you know, there needs to be that conversation about the police department and citizens and how they respond to police officers, because, you know, in this country, you know, everybody should be treated the same way. And in a lot of situations, it just doesn't seem that way. Again, I've always told you I will not talk about politics on this broadcast, and that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about how the country is being changed and how you as a truck driver are going to have to be aware of your surroundings and be aware of what's going on. But before you make any comments about this, actually, let's take a look at that clip of the actual shooting of the unarmed man. Let's take a look at that.
Atlanta police just released new videos of Friday night's deadly altercation between white officers and a black man, 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks. Brooks was shot and killed. The new videos are disturbing and run about 44 minutes. Our team has shortened and combined 2 police cam angles, and to help us understand what we're seeing, we are joined now by CNN law enforcement analyst Charles Ramsey. He is the former police commissioner of Philadelphia and the former police chief here where I am in Washington, D.C. Okay, Chief, thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to roll the video, and I'm going to let you narrate and explain what we're seeing and why it matters.
Okay. The engine's running. Look at the tail lights, and you can see they knock on the door. Clearly asleep.
Don't go back to sleep. Just pull over there.
They ask him to pull over. Right at that point in time, they don't know if he's been drinking or what the situation is.
Do you have any weapons on you or anything like that?
I don't have anything on me.
Is it okay if I...
Now, this is a critical point right here, and I'll mention it because it's easy to go by it, but they're doing a field sobriety test. Apparently, they did a breathalyzer as well. Came out as a .108, I believe. And this is the point in which things change. They try to handcuff him for driving under the influence, and then you can see clearly the struggle takes place, and the taser at that point in time, which, by the way, the officer had in his hand, must have been using what's called a drive stun, which is a pain compliance technique to get him to bring him under control. And then, of course, he flees. There's a foot chase, and shortly thereafter, now you'll hear the shots fired. But there is one point in this video that I think is critically important, which really then brings into question the actual shooting. And that is, when you look at that tape, they ask a critical question. Are you do you have any weapons? He says, no. Can I pat you down? He says, okay. So they pat him down. Once you pat him down, now you know he's not in possession of a firearm, which could obviously injure you should that be discharged at you. The taser itself, a less than lethal weapon, It was discharged, it looks like, during the course of the foot chase, but you know he's not armed. Now, you have to be in fear of imminent danger to your life or the life of another before you use deadly force.
All right, as the reporter was saying, it's very disturbing. I got up early this morning and my wife brought that to my attention that someone else had got killed through a police officer shooting. And, you know, when she started talking about it, my first response was, okay, you know, as citizens, we are responsible to listen to the police officer when he tells us to stop or to do whatever, you know, to do his job. That's what he's doing. But then there's some disturbing things that happened after that incident. As I told my wife, I said, plumb up until the arrest happened, I think the police officer followed the proper police procedure and did exactly what they were supposed to do. The problem happened after the guy decided to resist arrest. That's the part that disturbs me. And, you know, as me and my wife talked about it, they had the guy's car. They had his license. Everybody knows the police can run your plate and find out exactly what your address is, where you live. He wasn't going nowhere. Go to his house, arrest him for DUI, and put him in jail and let the judge handle it. The reason for shooting him while he's running, that bothers me. So, and I don't mean to laugh, but it's just, you know, it's so sad in our country that we're coming to these situations where we have to have these hard conversations about situations that happen in a society that needs to change. So, very, very troubling. And I hope we can move on from this and become a better country. All right, what else is going on? What else is going on? Okay, former NFL player gets off with only 2 years probation in the truck driving battery case. Okay, this was a case that happened a while back. And, you know, I always say that just talent and common sense sometimes don't run hand in hand. I don't know the individual. You know, as a football fan, I've heard of him, and very, very talented wide receiver, Antonio Brown. But he tends to have problems listening to coaches, problem dealing with teams, other issues that may come up. But again, I don't know him personally, but in this situation, he got into it with a truck driver who was driving freight for him, delivering his furniture to his house. So let's take a look at that clip.
Now on Just One Station, we're getting a new view of what led to former NFL star Antonio Brown being hit with charges. That incident dating back to January when he got into an altercation with a moving truck driver outside his home in Hollywood.
Yeah, and the unsportsmanlike conduct would later land him behind bars. 7's Nicola Ensalada has the exclusive.
It's the first glimpse we're getting of an argument that turned physical involving former NFL wide receiver Antonio Brown and a moving truck driver. It happened back in January in front of Brown's palatial Hollywood home. The driver, trying to drop off furniture, said he was still owed thousands of dollars. Moving company officials tell 7 News Brown had already thrown a rock at the truck. You hear Brown's then-girlfriend on this dashboard camera trying to make the needed payment and calm things down. The man you see in the blue shirt in front of the truck works for the moving company.
Don't call the police. Come on. I'm telling you right now. Look, let me pay you the money right now. Okay. What do you want? I have Chase. Do you have Quick Pay?
Yes. And then in the windshield's reflection, moving company officials say that's Antonio Brown in the orange shorts.
Stop! 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 Stop!
You want to pay us?
Stop, man.
Why do you think you want to pay us?
Stop.
The driver called 911 as Brown paced in front of the truck.
I need to get his description. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
It's a black guy. His name Antonio Brown. Probably a footballist player. Okay. NFL player.
The driver told the dispatcher he'd been hit and his shirt torn. Brown's girlfriend and another friend continued to try to turn down the temperature.
Please.
Yes, okay.
We'll give you the money. Help out. Come on.
Oh my God, you know, I told you I'm gonna pay you and you're making things difficult for him. You know how he is.
I don't know him.
After police arrive, Brown's trainer, Glenn Holt, accused of snatching the driver's keys and taken to jail on the spot. Brown entered his house, wouldn't come out, but eventually turned himself in at the Broward County Jail. Now, Brown is facing charges of burglary, battery, and criminal mischief, and he's got a status hearing later on this month. Reporting in Hollywood, Nicole Insalata for Today in Florida.
Okay, again, as I said before in the broadcast, talent and common sense sometimes don't go hand in hand. I don't understand why he didn't pay him. I don't understand why there was a problem. The guy was living in his parents' shirt. He should have just paid the guy and just moved on. But now he has 2 years probation because he wanted to get into a major conflict with somebody moving furniture for him. All right, let's go on. What else is going on? Okay. So, DOT gives $4.4 million for self-driving truck project on I-70. All right. The U.S. Department of Transportation has awarded Ohio with a multi-million-dollar grant to fund a large-scale automated truck project. And again, we've talked about it previously on our broadcast, autonomous trucking, how it's going to affect the trucking community. All right. On June 12th, the Ohio Department of Transportation announced that they had been awarded $4.4 million by the U.S. DOT grant for their I-70 truck automation corridor project. Officials say that the I-70 truck automation corridor project will involve deploying smart logistics solutions along a stretch of I-70 between Columbus, Ohio, and Indianapolis, Indiana, as part of a 4-year testing project. So I guess they're, from, of course, Ohio is here and Indiana's right next to it. And from Columbus, Ohio, you make a straight dash from Columbus to Indianapolis, and they're going to do like a automation for autonomous trucking during that stretch. And $4.4 million is a lot. It's a 4-year project, but I always said autonomous trucking, I'm kind of watching it, but I don't think it's going to take the foot that I think it should. It probably will, because of the fact that it's just a lot of money. $4.4 million for that small stretch just to get an autonomous truck on the road. And then in this autonomous truck, there's still going to be, it says a human driver will be in the cab in case intervention is necessary. So again, I always say autonomous trucking is not going to be a situation where you're not going to have a truck driver. You're still going to have a truck driver in the truck. And I think the amount of money it's cost to get autonomous trucking, I don't know if it's going to be beneficial in the long run. Again, I still think autonomous trucking is going to be a situation where it's going to make long haul a lot easier. Instead of having cruise control, you're going to have autonomous cruise control, which means that you can, on long hauls, you can just basically let the at-will steer itself. All right, what else is going on? State rest area food truck permits will not be renewed. So I've never experienced this out on the road as an OTR driver, but in this situation, it says Idaho, like many other states, allowed food trucks to sell food at rest areas to help feed truck drivers while truck stop restaurants were shut down. Okay, so I guess this was going on where the restaurants were shut down, because I never experienced it. When I was we always went to the truck stops. I never had food trucks come up to rest stops. But this is interesting. Now the state has entered stage 4 of its COVID plan. The state has announced it will discontinue the rest area food truck program as of June 12th. I mean, I don't see nothing wrong with trucks pulling up to a rest area and providing food for truck drivers. I think that's a great idea. I wish they would have continued it. More than 30 permits have been granted since we developed this provisionary program, said Nestor Fernando, Idaho Transportation Department Mobility Service Engineer. Now that the hot meals on the road will be easier to find, these permits will expire so that the ITD may be in compliance with federal rules. So they couldn't continue because of federal law. All right, what else is going on? U.S. Class 8 truck sales fall to recessionary levels in May. Okay, we know that the economy is taking a big hit because of the coronavirus and a lot of the protests going on in the country, and you see that in trucking sales. As expected, U.S. sales of Class 8 trucks declined sharply in May, according to data received today, June 10th, from Wards Intelligence. According to Wards, manufacturers reported that 9,165 Class 8 trucks were sold on the U.S. market in May, 3,472 fewer than already down in April, for a decline of 27.5%. It was the first sub 10,000 sales month for the industry since February of 2011. So we see that truck sales are down quite a bit, like 1/3, I would say, which is a big drop in the sales. And you're going to continue to see that more as technology's changing, things are changing, so, and the economy's getting worse. But I think, like I said before, those stores are going to have to be filled. Freight is going to come back, and it's going to come back pretty strong. So if you're out there waiting, be aware. It's coming very quickly. And I've seen a lot of stores opening back up. I've seen shelves start to get back to where it is. So freight is going to come back, and it's going to come back strong. Okay, that is it for today's broadcast. Again, make sure you like, share, and subscribe on our broadcast. Hit that subscribe button and that bell so you get notifications of our broadcast. We're going to end with a news break so you can look at the weather. And this is Dre Trucker 717. Peace. I'm out.
Here's a look at our national forecast starting with Monday. And while it looks like all of the action is in the southeast and the northwest, there is still a lot happening in the middle of the country. You may not see it, but you'll feel it. Look for really hot and humid weather for the center of the country this week. In fact, we're going to see those 90s in Minneapolis, not just in Minneapolis, Bismarck on Tuesday. You don't see it here, but you'll be 98 degrees. Now add to that heat in the middle of the country. We are watching the eastern seaboard for areas of rain. We'll see more of that running into the middle of the week. It'll kind of trek a bit more toward the mid-Atlantic, and then watching some of that northwest rain sliding on into the northern.